Okay. Why?
So we have a few attendees, I guess, if I'm using this correctly.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay, give us 2 more minutes and then we'll start.
Oh, that's way better.
Hi, Ryan. Thank you for coming. Okay, 1 more minute. Keep it going.
Can you hear me shuffling papers, Melody?
Yeah, you want to
No, it sounds like I'm doing things. Like I'm very busy.
All right. We have a lot of people here. I see a lot of utilities, a lot of contractors. Great. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. We're a light intro and then we'll get started here on the presentation. I am going to try and multitask and present and also monitor the chat as much as possible. If you can, yes, Chris, you do need to mute yourself because you're giving us a lot of noise. Thank you. Sorry, Chris, we still love you. Okay, get started. So we are here today to talk about kind of how our inspections and notifications are going to work in Accela. And so thank you all for coming. I know this seems a little odd that we're doing the end of the process first, but we have reasons to do that. And one of the biggest reasons is that our processes are changing with inspections and notifications. And we wanted you guys to have as much heads up lead time to make whatever changes things. The rest of the workshops, and we'll talk about this at the end, will happen in mid to late October, and then the week before launch, which is November 7th. Okay, SDOT's vision, mission, and core values. Our vision is to make Seattle a thriving, equitable community powered by dependable transportation. Our mission is to deliver a transportation system that provides safe and affordable access to places and opportunities. And we're committed to the 6 core values of equity, safety, mobility, sustainability, livability, and excellence. And we do feel that Accela is helping us to achieve a lot of these goals. Okay, so this is kind of what we'll go over today. We'll go over just a high-level overview of our launch, what it is, what it includes. We'll go over all the different permit types that will be launching on November 7th. Then we'll start diving into inspection types and functionality, inspection notifications and functionality. And then kind of how can you schedule in certain inspections either through the Seattle Services portal or offline of the portal as we do today. And then we'll also talk about how to find the status of an inspection. And at the end, I'll give you the dates of the rest of the external workshops. And we'll kind of talk about how you guys can stay in tune to that information, which I think you already are since you're here. So you're paying attention. So thank you. Yes, you are all muted. Please use the chat window for questions. And then if we have time at the end, we'll open it up for open discussions. Okay, so Accela is our new permit system. For anybody that interacts with SDCI, you are very familiar with this, or FAS or OSE. There's several departments on the Accela platform. It is considered an enterprise system for the city of Seattle. So Accela for us meets the following goals: improved, consistent, predictable, and transparent permitting and inspections. This is a very big deal as we all understand and live with kind of the black hole system that our current permit system, Hansen, is, right? Improved online user experience. Right now we have very limited online interface and it's not user friendly. And integrated systems for users across departments. So later in October or November, you'll learn some of our integration with SDCI for side sewer and curb cut permits. Okay, so here's our launch. This is SDOT's last big launch into Accela. So the remaining street use permits will be going in on November 7th. Right now, you can already apply for our traffic, public space management, and annual vehicle permits in Accela. Those are already there. We will have a small release next year, which is just really be about fixing errors and enhancing the system for things that we weren't able to get to for this time. But this is the last that we'll have. Okay, so this is what's coming in November. This is what is not on the platform right now. So everyone know, our construction use permits have kind of been separated into 3 different permit types. Right-of-way construction, which is pretty much what construction use is right now. Right-of-way maintenance, which is new, and that's really for very short-term work that doesn't close mobility for very long. And then heavy crane. That would be the installation and removal of tower cranes on either private property or in the right-of-way. That's new as well. Minor utility is very similar to what we have today, except we reduce the uses quite a bit on that one. And then, of course, we have utility major, street improvement, and final plat, which is kind of a special process. Yes, there will be a link to access the training material. So we're recording all of these, and we'll post the recording of these and the training materials on our website probably early next week. So look out for that, okay? It'll be on our construction and utility websites and inspections for this one. All right, so I'm going ahead and move it over to Lukey. He's going to take over from here. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of questions right now, so I'm going to pause for a second and answer a couple of questions we'll get. Call coordination is part of our review process. That will not change. This is not replacing dot maps or ArcGIS. This is not a GIS platform system. This is a permit system. This is where you'll apply for your permits and get to look at the status of your permits and inspection.
Yeah, in short, if I may, Melody, another way to put that, anything that you get, any permit that you get through SDOT street use now is moving to this system. So what you did before to work with us to go through the Hansen system for permitting, everything is now going to be in Hansen as of November 7th. So that's what's changing. It's not any of those other pieces.
Okay, answer one more question, Lukey, and then I'll send it over to you. Okay, so Kevin asked, will the use of blower trucks, conveyor belt trucks be under the heavy crane one? No, that'll be under the right-of-way construction. You had it right. It's only the installation and removal of heavy cranes that will be under the heavy crane. Anything greater than a 100-ton crane will be the heavy crane permit. And we'll talk more about that in later sessions. Okay, Chris, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. I have a couple of my champions are also here, so if we need to chime in and flesh out some answers, awesome. Jenny, Danny, Diana, also feel free. So in terms of inspection types, under the Accela system, we'll have our core inspections, which are the initial, the interim for an amended permit when a change has been made to the use, the final inspection, and acceptance or bond release. Those are essentially permit or inspection types that are generated through the interaction with the system. They're auto-generated. Ad hoc or additional inspections like site visits, calling for curb ramp inspection, mark out, and restoration. So those aren't auto-generated by the system. And offline, which are not dealt with at all through the portal, will be off-hours inspections, PreCon meetings, SDOT asset inspections, and special utility inspections. So all of the core and the ad hoc inspection types will be accessible, and we will be directing you to work through the portal for those. The offline ones we will address separately. And we'll note this on our website updates as well. Okay. So just real quickly, the core inspection types, the initial is the first inspection on a new permit. There's only one. It's because it's the first. Everything after that, during the life of the permit, typically the regular cadence of scheduled inspections will be interim inspections. You will get a separate designation for interim amend when inspections start on when the scope of work's been changed, the uses have been changed on the permit. Reinspection comes along if you have a code violation and we need to go back and make sure that it's been rectified. Final, obviously, when the project's completed and the right-of-way is clear. As far as our timelines for acceptance, once we reach acceptance stage and bond release, those are per our ROAR final timelines, and those also are part of our core inspection types. Next. So ad hoc inspection types, these are ones that are requested through the portal in addition to those that are automatically scheduled. So there's site visits. These are non-cadence. They're not your every 10, every 20 day type things. They're just as needed inspections. You can request those. The request may indicate a follow-up or other event requiring inspection, a request for inspection on something, just in general. Specific ad hoc inspection types exist for curb ramps to confirm curb ramp installation requirements and ADA requirements are being met. Specific, again, for markouts, for restoration limits, if you're asking us to come and mark those out for you. And then there's also for restoration, a separate ad hoc inspection type specific to verifying that restoration's been completed as directed and per requirements. Offline, there's 4 of those. So they were not incorporated in our current version of Accela for various reasons, some of them having to do with how we need to manage workflow and work processes. And some of these require a little bit more hands-on attention. So off hours, any inspection performed outside of normal business hours, so your nights and weekends, those are not going to be scheduled through Accela. There's a separate mechanism. You will be contacting us directly for those. SDOT asset inspections, where we have an outside SDOT division other than street use that needs to accept an asset like a tree or signal infrastructure, et cetera. That is not going to be scheduled through in Accela because those parties are not in Accela with us. Utility, when you have a public utility need to accept the backfill or installation of an asset like SPU pipes or city light ducts, those are not scheduled through Accela. And formal pre-con meetings. So the formal pre-con meetings, for instance, for your SIP projects, those are going to be scheduled through interaction with your SIP reviewer on majors. And you may request, in other cases, we'll be working directly with you on those. Those will not be scheduled through the portal as well. You'll be contacting your inspector directly. I can't hear you, Melody. Maybe that's on purpose.
Sorry. Sylvia asked if only new permits will show in Accela or existing permits. We will be converting all active permits from Hanson into Accela on November 7th, the same day that we launch.
Okay. So in the system, you will see when we do an inspection, there will be results for that inspection. Our aim is that those results will be in pretty real time, so you won't have to wait a week to find out what the result was. We'll be putting those in to the system because it's much better integrated with our technology that is available in the field. So there are several results that are possible. Completed. The inspection, the type of inspection that's been requested has been performed, no violations. Congratulations. Waived. For one reason or another, the inspection's not required. There was no visit to the site and it's being, well, waived. Failed. Violation found. If we find a violation, and this will indicate, create a point in time recording that we have identified a violation, and it will generate and require that we generate a reinspection to resolve that. You may find something called not ready. If we have an inspection type that's been requested or been generated by the system, and it's time for us to go out and look at something, and that type of inspection, you were not prepared for it, you're not ready for it, then you weren't ready. We can't call it completed. We're not waiving it. We're saying that inspection needs to happen, but you didn't have site conditions prepared for the type of inspection being performed. For instance, curb ramp, a scheduled curb ramp inspection. And then we show up and you're not ready. Well, then you're not ready. Final completed. That's an indication that the final inspection can be moved over in the system, closed to final, so we can close it out. Final completed, no acceptance. that would be a case where we have, in distinguishing from that where we have a later acceptance in the final completed. In this one, we don't need an acceptance. The type of thing where our rules do not require an acceptance or a bond release is not applicable in this situation. That's where you're going to see this. That's the final, all done. Nobody needs to do anything else with it, more or less.
That means it's on its way to being closed.
Yeah.
Okay. Brianna asks, are we able to schedule for exact times online? No, we are not set up for that. I know SCCI has a similar model like that, but that is not how we do business. And we'll talk about this in a few slides, Brianna. We do need that same 2 business day leeway on anything you schedule through the portal.
And that is one of the reasons that things like PreCons are not being scheduled through the portal. Those are being scheduled through direct negotiation with your inspector so that you're both on the same page and working out when to show up to do something like that. So here is just a table showing our inspections by permit type. UMPs, every permit type is applicable, every inspection type is applicable to the UMP. SIP, with the exception of acceptance. Right-of-way maintenance, you'll see, is a little bit less. I mean, I guess we don't need to necessarily work through this whole thing, but gives you a feel for which inspection types are applicable. Initials are going to be generated on all of them, for instance. They will all generate site inspections. Reinspection will be applicable to all in the case of a violation found. Restoration for everything but heavy crane. Off hours would be applicable. So off hours, we'll touch on this a little bit more, but off hours is one of those things. It's not going to be scheduled through the portal. You will need to address that through our off hours scheduling inbox. Once it has been scheduled and verified, we on the back end will populate that. We will insert that into, so you will see those inspections once they are generated, but they won't be generated by your action through the portal. You'll need to contact us. We'll go through the off-hour scheduling process and vet that out, and then we'll put that inspection into the system. So you will see that, just in case that's confusing. Pre-cons may not happen for everything necessarily, but they can be triggered for any. Markouts obviously don't happen for heavy cranes normally. Finals, everything gets a final. SDOT asset when it's applicable, utility when it's applicable, et cetera. And obviously SIPs and UMPs are the only 2 that have bond release issues. That will also come into play. Okay. So inspection notifications through Accela. These are going to enable you to schedule an inspection through the portal or through an email to our inspection group. So when you get a job start notification, the inspection that'll be triggered will be the initial. That takes place through the portal. So you'll be able to handle job start initial interactions through the portal. Site inspections will be through the portal. Restoration through the portal. Requests for curb ramp inspection through the portal. And markouts through the portal. And again, the off hours and pre-con meeting inspections, those will appear, but in order to schedule those are going to be direct contacts with our staff rather than going through the portal. By permit type, so all of our permits will generate a job start that will be generated when the permit's approved. And site inspections. Restoration doesn't apply to heavy crane. Curb ramps are only going to be in our SIP and UMP permits going forward anyway. Markouts won't apply to heavy crane. Off hours and PreCons can, but don't necessarily always apply to any of them.
Hey, Chris. Brianna would like to know a little more information about if they're requesting a specific inspection like forms or anything like that. If they can't request specific times in the portal, how can they work with their inspector to make sure that they're not coming out at a time that they won't be available or ready?
Well, you can, I think we're going to be scheduling site inspections. You can make a site inspection request for when you think you will be ready. If you're going to be ready on Tuesday, but you're not going to be ready on Monday, you can request the site inspection for Tuesday. Obviously, there's nothing, you can contact your inspector as well to coordinate on that, but the online through the portal scheduling lets you request that the date that you would like that. So if you don't think you're going to be ready until maybe 3:30 in the afternoon on Tuesday, maybe Wednesday's the better day to have them come out and look at it. This doesn't preclude you from being in contact with your inspector, but in terms of scheduling inspections and putting that out on the radar, that goes through the portal without a time, necessarily a specific time on it. Does that make sense? I hope.
Okay, so they'll request the date that works best for them through the portal, and if they need to coordinate a time, they can work directly with the inspector.
Yes, correct. But please bear in mind the expectation is you're going to request that site visit through the portal. If you're requesting it through the inspector is not charged with then going back and populating that request for you. You should request, and the expectation will be you request the site visit that you want, because you're setting it up based on what your needs are typically for those types of ad hoc inspections, and then communicate with your inspector around that. And then if you need to change dates, whatever, or modify things, cool. But that starts with going through the portal and identifying the window, the starting point that works for you.
Yeah, and you can reschedule these. So if you originally set the site inspection for Wednesday and something changes, which we know does, as long as it's 2 business days advance notice, you can reschedule that for a later time. And we'll talk about that more in a bit.
Yeah. I do see a question here. PreCons and off hours will be communicated directly with the assigned inspector, correct? Yes. So let me just quick clarification on that. So your major PreCons for like SIP, those are going to be organized through the SIP reviewers. Other PreCons that you may wish to meet up on and do walkthroughs on, things like that, that you will do directly with the inspector. Off hours, we have a separate process for. That is not happening through the inspector directly because our off hour scheduling, it depends on what staff's available. So it might not do you a lot of, it might not be the best move to coordinate with your day-to-day inspector if they're not going to be the ones covering it. That's why we are requesting that you're going to be contacting us at least 72 hours in advance through our off-hour scheduling inbox, and we will work through that, confirm the dates and the coverage, and make sure that A, that inspection gets vetted and populated, and B, that it actually gets to an inspector to go to. That keeps that whole category of work a little bit more streamlined and prevents it from being on a case-by-case basis, whether somebody passes it on effectively or not. So I hope that is clear enough to folks.
Hey, Chris, one more question. Is there a spot to indicate a preferred time like SDCI does, but still follow up with the inspector? And one thing I don't know, there is a general notes section when you schedule it, but does that populate on the inspection for the inspector to see and the work list?
You know, I don't know the answer to that, honestly. I think it would be great if there's a little note there. We'll have to check up on that, make sure. So don't quote me on that. It would be cool if it did, because that would be great if you could just say, hey, Tuesday, by the way, afternoon is great. Yeah, I don't know if it does that or not. If it does, yay. If it doesn't, schedule the inspection for when you want it. If it's something that you can schedule through the portal like that, one of the ones we've talked about, and then contact your inspector and just let them know. Just shoot them a quick email and say, hey, I just scheduled this for next Tuesday. Here's what's going on.
Yeah, we'll get clarification on that and put that in our next monthly newsletter. Any questions that we're not able to answer, we'll do that. Okay, and then Tammy asks, 5 days before start date, is this new? It's usually 3 business days. Did you say 5 business days for something?
I think that might be in reference to this slide that we haven't actually covered yet.
Oh, okay. Tammy's ahead of us.
Yeah. So what we've talked about so far is with off-hours scheduling, that's our current practices. We ask for 72 hours advance notice. So now we're going to talk a little bit about action dependencies, how this kind of flows, because not all the inspections and notifications are going to populate at one time when you activate a permit. What pops up, what's alive in the system, and what's generated depends on the action and the stage you're at in the life of the permit. So, and just so you know, like final inspections for the utility permits, they're going to get scheduled a business day after the 6-month expiration date. So assuming that you don't extend or something else doesn't happen, your final is going to be populated the day after your permit expires.
So I just want to clarify something. The 5 business days is just our generic automatic thing. That's based on if you do not tell us otherwise, right? So if you go into the portal and tell us you want a job start of X date, that's when the initial will get rescheduled to. So this is just the automatic thing that if you don't do that, we're going out there 5 business days after the start date.
Yeah, so when your permit's issued, this is a pretty important piece of this. When your permit is issued, a job start notification will be added. You have an opportunity, so that will be auto-generated by the system. Please write that down and underline it because it's going to cost you if you're not paying attention to this. You activate a permit, that activates a job start notification for a pending job start. You have an opportunity to reschedule that job start for when you actually plan on starting the work. If you don't, the system is going to default it and say, well, you activated your permit, so you obviously want to start now, 5 days from now or whatever, 3 days from now, whatever it is. You need to pay attention to that because when you activate your permit, you need to try and provide some kind of a start date for it. Unless you want to live with the default. The problem with just letting that default is if you're not actually you haven't actually started work, and your job start notification is goes forward, or your job start is initialized. 5 business days after that, you're going to get an initial inspection generated. If you haven't talked to us about it, you haven't rescheduled your job start, you're just letting it go blind, you're going to automatically get an initial, and we're going to show up and see that you're not there, and we're going to charge you for coming by and seeing that you're not there. I hope that's very, very much something that you take away from this. We need to know when you're working. The system will, again, for the 4th or 5th time, the system is going to generate a job start notification at permit issuance. You will get that notification. You get to go in and you can reschedule. You can push that to wherever you need to. You can totally reschedule that. Please do so. Otherwise, we're going to assume you activated your permit because you're working on your permit, and we're going to come out and look for you. Finals, with the exception of the simple utilities that are 6 months after the expiry, that are 6-month duration. I mean, it really doesn't matter one way or the other. Your final inspection is going to come due the business day after the end date of your use. If you amend that, you get an extension, or we're going to call those amendments going forward, or we change the use that's going on out there, that will all get reset.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Melody.
Brianna has another good question. She wants to
No way.
know. Yeah, she has lots of good questions. If they schedule, I'm assuming, Brianna, but type something if I'm wrong. I'm assuming you're asking if they schedule a very specific inspection, what we're calling site inspections, to go out and look at forms or backfill or something like that, but the inspector is out unexpectedly, will those site inspections get rescheduled to someone else on that day?
Well, ideally, not automatically. We will have to move them to someone. So they won't automatically get picked up by somebody else unless we find them and reassign them, which we will try to do the best that we're able. But they're not going to magically move to someone else who is here. So that's going to be an administrative challenge, just like it is today. If you guys arrange to meet today and then your inspector's not there because they called in sick or whatever, yeah, it's always a bit of a thing. We have the ability to move those, but we have to find them and move them. They don't automatically. So either the inspector, the supervisor, and if you have an issue like that, obviously, contact us, let us know, and we'll see what we can do to address it if it's a time-sensitive arrangement. And hopefully that's something that we're communicating about.
Yeah, I think that's something we'll go back and take a look at. I think that's a good one to follow up on. I have a couple more questions. David wants to know, can we pull a start date before the date on the application? So David, we're not talking about amendments right now and all the different types of amendments, but yes, that is called a date change amendment and will be available on all our permits. And then Kevin wants to know, does someone have to be on site to meet the inspector for every inspection?
No, not necessarily. You're probably not going to be there for a final. You might not be there for any number of things. As long as we can perform the inspection of the type of inspection that's necessary, you don't necessarily have to be there. You can designate. So one of the things Accela is going to let you do is if you are the contact on record for the permit, but you're not going to be able to be there Thursday, but Greg is, for the inspection, you can designate a new contact who will be on site for the inspection. Or if you need our inspector to meet with one of your subs, but you're not going to be there, for instance, you can designate someone else for a different contact for a specific inspection. So you, as the 24-hour contact, for instance, you're not necessarily going to need to be there for every inspection. You can determine who's going to be there, and some we don't necessarily need you there for. It might be quite a bit easier if you are, but sometimes no. You know, you're not necessarily going to need to be there for every single inspection.
Okay, and David has another question about amendments. If we let the permit expire due to non-use for a few weeks, do we apply for a new permit, or will it be reopened? So we don't have actually a formal policy on when we close permits due to inactivity. We typically need you to tell us when you're done, right? So yes, the amendments will be available for you to extend as long as the permit is open.
Pretty much like now. So just to wrap this slide up, you know, permit issuance, again, that's going to add a job start notification to your permit. That'll be an opportunity for you to think about rescheduling. And an initial inspection, which is going to populate 5 days after that. And the final inspection based on what's been set up in the permit for an end use the day after that final will also appear on your inspection record as a pending. So you'll schedule the job start. If you can either let it default, or I highly recommend move that job start, reschedule that job start to when you are actually going to be mobilizing in the field, because 5 days after that, that will then automatically move the initial inspection, and that's when we're going to show up if we don't hear from you otherwise. And once that initial has been completed, once that's been resulted, that's going to add, you can add site visits, curb ramps, mark out, restoration, notifications. We can waive the job start if that's pending still at that point. So everything really gets rolling once we've done the initial. But again, that job start piece is critical in terms of generating the initial and generating SDOT inspection activity on your permit to begin with. Hopefully that's relatively clear.
How long would it take to get a permit for improving the alley? It depends on how much impervious surface you're disturbing there. So if you have a question on that, can you email DOT permits, please, with a little more information? Okay, we ready to move to the next slide?
Yeah, why not? So scheduling through the portal. So you'll see when you're in the portal and the inspection section on the permit record, you select actions, which is right down there. So you'll find your permit. You'll have actions and schedule. So this is for TBD pending job start notification, scheduling a job start notification in this case. Okay. That is going to do some magical things. That is going to bring up a calendar to schedule and request an inspection. You can select the date. Some you will not be able to schedule things earlier when we have a requirement, like for instance, that you need to give us 72 hours notice or 22 business days, whatever, for certain things. You're not going to be able to schedule them earlier in some cases if the requirement is that you give us at least 48 hours. And you will get a calendar. You can then verify your on-site. You select the dates you want, or the date you want. This is where I was talking about, you can designate an on-site contact for this inspection. This does not change who the contact of record on the permit is. This is just telling us when the inspector shows up, I want him to talk to Dave because Dave's actually going to be there. I'm going to be out of town, whatever. You can put that right in here. You're going to verify that for us so that we have, smoother lines of communication and you have more flexibility in communicating that outside of modifying the permit record. So you'll verify that, hit submit, and finish. And right there, you have some optional comments for your inspector. So I believe that would be a place where you could put things like, can we do this after 10 a.m. or prior to noon? Something like that would be a good place to put this. I would also, if you have specifics like that, you can contact your inspector, but this is a really good spot for it.
All right, Sarah makes a comment. It's the same for SDCI, yet we are using the same function as SDCI does, and you actually go to the same location on the portal, either through the permit itself or through that schedule section on the portal. So yes, it is the same. Okay, Mehdi, we gotta take this offline. Can you just email me separately on that one, please?
Rescheduling. So you may need to reschedule through the portal as well. Here's one of those places where the calendar is not going to let you do certain things. So if we require a 2-day advance notice in order to schedule something or reschedule, you're going to see some blocked out times. You're not going to be able to reschedule it today. If you're already within 2 business days, you have to push that out. So again, you go to the inspection section of the permit and the permit record that's applicable, select actions and then reschedule. And then it's the same system. You just go through steps 2 through 4. So again, you would be picking your dates. You're not going to be able to do them sooner than is required. Or, if we have you're not going to be able to do them within 2 days, but you can reschedule the inspection. You can adjust the contact and then give us some notes. Yay, same thing, same process. You can reschedule any of this stuff, pretty much. Okay. Restoration notifications. They must be scheduled by individual permit on the portal 2 business days in advance. Restoration notifications by email are not going to be accepted after November 7th. So we love the email lists of work that's going on out there. That's cool. We love to just continue to receive those and communicate with you in every possible way, make sure that our inspectors and you are working very closely together and everything's going smoothly. But when it comes to actually scheduling inspections for restoration, you need to tell us when you want those and put them in through the portal here. Actions, schedule, I think we've covered that.
Okay, I just want to make it super clear from some of our utility organizations on the line that we will not accept same-day restoration notifications any longer.
So this is a quick and easy system. Generally speaking, I think shouldn't be hopefully not too big of a burden for folks. But you got to let us know that you're heading out there. Somebody put no parks out at least 72 hours in advance, typically. So somebody knew you were going. So somebody can help make sure that that just gets plugged in and we have a date and a request to go out and do that.
From your phone too, as putting out the no parks. I'm just joking. I have no idea who puts out no parks for you guys.
So please bear that in mind as well, as Melody pointed out too. So scheduling offline of the portal. A couple of things here. Again, off hours work. So if it's outside of normal working hours, which is 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, anytime outside of that, we need 3 days advance notice. Email that to DOT_street use_off hours _inspections, our off hours inspection inbox at seattle.gov. We need to collect those in advance. We need to verify that that is a legitimate request, coordinate with your inspector or hub or permits as necessary anyway. And then we will go ahead and put that in. If it's once we've vetted it out, we'll put that into the system. So you'll see it generated. And we will assign that to inspector staff who are actually going to be present to do the inspection. So as we schedule that, you will see that populate in the system. It's not something you can schedule. You need to request it through this format for a variety of reasons in the system. But that's what we're asking, is you give us the details via email, and we will work through the scheduling and populate that and assign it to an inspector, and voila, that will appear on your inspection record. Pre-con meetings. This is a little bit wonky. Really, the formal ones are SIP. So that's where the SIP reviewer is going to coordinate all of the secondary parties, including inspections and City Light and SPU and whatever. That's all going to go through the SIP reviewer. That's going to be directly via email mechanisms. And essentially any other pre-con request, walkthrough request, things like that, you will just work directly with your inspector on that via email. To set up a time to go out and do that. In that case, when you request a pre-con, an informal pre-con, so to speak, you schedule that through your inspector. The inspector will generate that as a site visit with appropriate notation. But you'll need to coordinate that. For that to happen, you'll need to coordinate it directly with your inspector, not through the portal.
Okay, I have a question from Anson. Pre-con meetings are not the same thing as design guidance meetings. What you're talking about is a right-of-way design guidance meeting. CAM 2109 goes over when those are required. And we are changing those thresholds a bit for November 7th launch. But if you want to know more about that, go to CAM 2109. We don't have over-the-counter permits, and we haven't since 2016. I know people still reference that term. We have not had over-the-counter permits since 2016. So please make sure you're checking our timelines on their website to know exactly how long things are taking right now. And we're just really asking everyone's patience as we're learning a new system to get all of us into a better, more predictable and transparent system with Accela, okay? So it really depends on if your project is triggering one of those right-of-way design guidance meetings or not. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to Judy Connors on that, Anson.
And how to find the status of inspections when you guys get into Accela. When you're in your permit, select inspections, and all of the scheduled, waived, and resulted inspections, every inspection action that's been scheduled, waived, and resulted will appear here for you. You will also see those things that are pending. Hopefully that makes sense. You'll see the whole record right here and be able to access the details. for each inspection.
Yeah, and that's a clarification to make. You will see, it's just a long list, and you just have to keep scrolling. So it's really the record for all inspections are going to be listed here for your view.
So look for the most recent.
Okay,
If you're looking for the most recent, you have to scroll down.
Yep. Justin asked, will there be a test period before the go live for our folks to get familiar with the system and tools? No, we don't do that for ourselves, let alone you guys. So no, we're going live. November 9th is when you guys can access the system. But we will have, and we'll talk about this at the end, Q&A sessions twice a week after launch for all of you to come and ask the questions if you're struggling with something. And then Paul asked, do the required inspections show up on a given permit? Yes, as soon as and we talked about this a little bit earlier on the dependencies. It depends on where you're at in the permit, what inspections show up. And then Brianna asks, is there going to be access to speeding up hub coordination via Accela?
No.
Hub coordination is part of our review process. That's not changing. Now for extensions and stuff, none of that is changing for hub. They're just part of the review process. We can talk about more of that offline if needed.
Melody, will you be able to see whether or not what the hub status is in the inspection record or the permit record?
Yes, you'll be able to see all of the required reviewers on a permit and what their status is. Now, just by work group name though, like it won't be like Ethan Jackson hub coordinator. It'll just be hub coordination, right? So yeah, we'll go over that in our permit workshops. All right, so here's what's coming up. I realized through the conversation that we probably need a specific workshop for amendments only, which will probably have to happen after launch. So I'll work on getting that updated. But here's what we got so far. To make sure you guys are staying apprised of this information, please make sure you're subscribed to our monthly newsletter. And if you're not, email me and I'll send you how to do that. And then, of course, we'll have all this information on our website starting the end of September. So all amendments, so Tony was asking about extensions. That will be an extension amendment available after we launch. So any sort of change, modification process we have now will be an amendment process over the portal. All right, we're out of time, everyone. Thank you. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to me and Chris Lukey. We appreciate your time. We'll get this posted to our website along with the PowerPoint probably by next week. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.